Oh,
Good.
there we go. Okay, ready?
Yes.
Okay, I will call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Director Sewell,
Here.
Director Grasha,
Here.
Director Duncan. Director Duncan? Thank you. Vice President Martin,
Here.
thank you. And President Wright,
Here.
thank you, we have quorum.
Thank you. Rules of procedure. Mr. Pinckney, are you here? Is that you, John? Yeah, you
I
just say
am.
good morning. Hi.
Yeah.
Okay. Or this afternoon.
How are you doing?
Fine.
Okay, so the rules of procedure, just touching on some of the key provisions. All noticed meetings are conducted using Rosenberg's Rules of Order as a procedural guideline. Directors should refrain from responding directly to public comments at meetings of the board. The president of the board presides at all meetings and decides all points of order and procedure during meetings. The president is responsible for the maintenance of order and decorum at all board meetings. No person should be allowed to speak who has not first been recognized by the president. All questions and remarks should be addressed to the president as the presiding officer. No member of the board should speak more than once upon any one subject until every other member of the board wishing to speak on the subject shall have been given an opportunity to so speak. No board member shall interfere with the orderly progress of a board meeting. In order to ensure the orderly progress of the board president regulates the amount of time to be dedicated to a particular agenda item.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. We're now at the public input part of the meeting. Do we have anybody for public input?
No, ma'am, we do not.
Okay, well, if those people happen to pipe in, just let me know in between, maybe in between some of these items, and we might, be able to pull them in then at that point.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, our COVID-19 update. General Manager. You're on mute. You're on mute, Arden.
Excuse me. I'm sorry, my phone took off just as you said that. Okay, well, everyone, hopefully good news. Seems like we are starting to see the beginning of the end. In the valley at Eisenhower, the numbers are way down just to a handful of people, but it is level. I mean, it's not like, I don't think it goes down to zero, but there's always a trickle in of some sorts. We've been back to the AB teams since February 22nd. We have no reportable new cases. And at this time, though, we do not have the public coming in yet. And that'll remain so until we think we're clearly out of the pandemic. We are hearing that many of the restrictions that are in place will be lifted next week, and some as early as Monday. I'm not sure why that's happening, but we're hearing rumors to that effect. By the 15th, we also were expecting that that the water and sewer essential staff would be on the priority list to get the vaccine, which would be good. And I guess, Nancy, you said you got the vaccine yesterday?
Yeah. And
it's the J&J, which is just as good as any of them, the one shot. And so, we also are attempting to get through this COVID package, which is expected, the federal legislation, the $1.9 trillion. JP is looking at the law to see if there's any money in there for, special districts or water districts. I had Laura, who's been a tremendous help, go through, and Oriana's taken a look at it, and we'll see how much of that affects us and to what extent. And Laura's been greatly helpful to us during this time. However, with that said, and we may go back, we may have a regular meeting with those that don't want to attend, can attend virtually, but we will remain with the mask, social distancing and the sanitation restrictions in place for an undetermined amount of time. And I think that's about it. Brian, did I leave out anything that you can think of?
No, but I see Randy has a question.
Randy,
Hi, Randy.
Hi, hello, everybody. Arden, I don't know if you can actually quantify this or not, but do you have any idea what COVID has cost the district in not only lost revenues, but phone equipment, extra computers we've had to buy, protective gear, cleaning services, anything above our normal, because we've been a year right now. I
okay,
think today marked a year.
Randy, I
Yeah.
think, yeah, we've been working on that. In fact, Nancy and I, when we were visiting on Friday, went in and talked to Matt. Matt, I think, had something together for us.
Okay,
And it'll happen during his financial report or during the general
that's fine.
report. And you can always.
Yeah,
Manager's report.
yeah. That was a good idea to know too, Randy. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, that's a good question, Randy. Thank you.
Yeah, it was announced, I believe, in the newspaper, or maybe I saw it on television, that this Center for Disease Control stated that once everybody gets vaccinated within family units and things like that, that they no longer have to wear masks and they're interchanged. So I would assume that would apply to the board, that once everybody on the board got vaccinated, that we've got the protective shields on each side of the thing that we probably could get by without wearing the masks, at least during the meetings. So.
Yeah.
All right. That's it, Nancy.
I've also asked them to find out what it would take to get back into the boardroom as far as, if somebody didn't want to come back in and they wanted to call in, how would that all work? So they're working on that too. How do we do it?
I just want to make a point. I don't think that, I think you need to study what the federal health officials didn't quite go that far as Director Martin went in allowing people. They were specific in pointing out that people could go without masks that had the vaccination as long as they weren't in high risk groups for, I guess, for contamination. In other words, low risk for having picked it up and carried it in the room. And I don't know that we could assure that, since
I assure you, whatever we do, it'll be within the law. We'll do what we
Well,
can do legally, and we'll just go from there.
Yeah, no, I agree. I would love for you to be able to get back in there, but they were specific in what they recommended. So,
Okay, we'll keep an eye on everything.
okay.
Okay, Human Resources Report and Employee Recognition.
We have a 20-year pin that we can go into this a little more on Monday. However, even Monday, I don't think Mark is going to be here. So we're going to present his pin to him. We can talk, we can, recognize the I guess we have 3 that have anniversaries, and we have Lisa with the certification. And I've had a lot of history with all 3 of these people that are being recognized for their anniversaries. So it'll be fun. But Mark is on vacation right now. Sorry about that. So.
Okay, I was trying to get my agenda open here on my iPad, and I lost it. It's just loading. Okay, there it is. I just want to mention their names. We have Mark, you mentioned him, Vermeer. Teresa Murphy has 13 years. Mark has 20 years, and Carol has 19 years. Oh my goodness. Wow, that's 40, that's 52 years. Jeez. Anyway, and so congratulations to all 3 of them. Okay, action items, item number 2.
All right,
California
Thank you.
Special District Association Board of Directors calls for nominations.
the next 3 items, are essentially, items you can choose to participate in or not. They're optional, of course. And if there's no interest in this particular one, this is a California Special Districts Association Board of Directors call for nominations for the Southern Network at Seat A. The time commitment is handled in this cover letter, so you can do that over the weekend to see if you're interested in it. The fiscal impact is also laid out. They did a nice job there showing us what they will pay for and what the district will have to pay for. And all I think you need to do is review it and see if you're interested in running for the board. Okay?
Yeah, that's for CSDA,
Yes, that's the CSDA seat.
right.
not
So
the-
the what do you call it? The election for those seats will not be until, I don't remember if I read it anywhere, but at least a month or 2 away.
The deadline's March 29th for the nominations.
These are just nominations, okay. And we did have a request for nominations, didn't we, by Joe McKenzie?
We had
Well,
a request for
that's-
a concurrent nomination, yes.
Right? Is that in this packet?
It's not. Remember, we had said if nobody desired to throw their name
That's all you wanted this time, was just if any of us wanted to be, not that we,
internally.
so when will we vote on something like what Joe asked us to vote on?
It can be on Monday's agenda if you'd like. If nobody's interested in
Oh, that's what we
nominating
did.
themselves or someone else, then we can do it on Monday.
Okay, does any of you guys interested in the CSDA board of whatever? Okay, so if not, I would like to add, if Joe McKenzie's letter of request for us to, as a, what kind of nomination, her board has nominated her and they need like 3 or 4 different boards to concur with that nomination, I guess it is, right? I think, and that's what we would be voting on Monday then. And Joe McKenzie, a longtime member of CSDA and board member of CSDA. She's from San Diego, I think Vista, somewhere down there.
We very seldom go to CSDA or Aqua without having at least one lunch or one period of time with Joe.
Yeah, she always comes to the Aqua ones too. Okay, the next one, item number 3, is the resolution 2021-02 Aqua JPI Executive Committee election nominations. And we've got 2 of those.
Well, yes, but before I begin, you're going to talk about both of these and decide Monday if you want to, basically adopt the resolution. But there
course,
are 4 seats to be filled, so you can do both of these. You don't have to do one or the other. Isn't that
Yeah.
correct, Lori?
Yeah, we're just supporting their board's nomination of them, I believe. Yes.
Correct. And you can concur on both, on one, on neither.
Okay, so and I think all their information then is in there, and when you add the CSDA nomination, you put in all Joe's background, the paperwork that she sent about herself.
Yes, ma'am.
Her bio, I should say. Okay, thanks. Okay, so that would be item 3 would be the Aqua JPI Executive Committee for, we have 2 of them on here, one for each one of them, correct? Melody and for Randall James, yes, okay. So item number 5, award of contract for the construction of the Horton Wastewater Treatment Plant Influent Pump Station, Odor Control System, and Capital Budget Augmentation. General Manager.
All right, thank you, Nancy. While Danny's getting ready for his presentation, I will just tell you that odor control, which I didn't realize how much it cost, but odor control can be 30 to 40% of the capital cost and a big chunk of the operational cost for these treatment facilities. This particular project was actually conceived of a long time ago in a design that we had for the Horton plant before we decided that we were going to table that expansion and move to the regional plant, which I'm glad we did. Made sense. We went through a lengthy determination, which you've all had a presentation on. This will mask and treat the odor from the influent, which is the raw sewage. And it is really probably the most odoriferous, shall I say, or stinky, if I want to use a technical term. So with that said, Danny, are you ready to take over with your presentation?
I am, Arden. Thank you. I don't have a presentation on this item today, meaning a slideshow, but I am going to go over the actual staff report and some of the reasons why we've asking for a budget augmentation. So thank you, Arden. Good afternoon, Madam President, members of the board. Arden, thank you for giving that intro. I don't know if I have much to give on the facts of why we're talking about odor control, but as Arden was talking about, when we did design expansion 5, number 5, back in 2008, we put that project in the can, so to speak, because there was a lot of things happening with the economy that wasn't driving a increase to our plant and an expansion of the current Horton plant. Later, when we decided to come back to that, it just seemed the more viable project was working towards our regional location. So what that has done is it's left some of the improvements that were going to be covered under expansion 5 still to remain. One of these is the Influent pump station odor control. When we asked for this budget, we pretty much just scalped the numbers as an item from the bid schedule from the 2008 update. We also looked at it in 2012 when we were contemplating bringing this project back to life and see what would happen with the revised engineer's estimate. Again, the unfortunate part, when we created a budget of $320,000, we scalped out the cost for that particular item. We didn't bring its ancillary costs for the soft costs for like CM, construction management, project management, the inspection. So that is primarily where some of the larger costs come from. So now that you understand that, we're asking the board for consideration to authorize the general manager to award a contract to Adam Engineering. They have a capital AT lowercase OM, but it's actually Adam Engineering Construction for the Horton Wastewater Treatment Plant Influent Pump Station Odor Control for a not to exceed price of $547,137.80, which is including the 10% contingency. And we're going to augment the budget to $730,000. Now let's go why we went from $320,000 to $730,000. Over the last 3.5 to 4 years while we've been working on this project, one of the biggest things is we wanted to take a look at the cost of, construction costs. We also wanted to make sure that we were utilizing the most up-to-date technology. We wanted to make sure that what was looked at in 2008 and recommended for odor control, what has changed since then to today. So we did an evaluation. We spent about $83,000 in secret compliance, advertising, bidding, design, determining whether the reevaluation process so that we can ensure we had the most up-to-date equipment was being looked at. That had in its own price, just to kind of go through a redesign or a tech memo, was about $70,000. There was about $75,000 in construction management inspection costs that again weren't considered when we first put the budget together. What was new since the time that we had this project created was labor compliance. There's actually about $10,000 in labor compliance. And one of the bigger costs here we've been talking about here for the last 3 months is the impacts of COVID to construction industry. It has increased some costs that we can put a number to as high as 25% to 30%. So those are all big factors as to why a budget at one time that was $320,000 4 years ago is being asked to be augmented to $730,000 today. The value of this project, as Arden pretty much talked about, is the reduction of nuisance odors to the surrounding community or eliminate our complaint odors. I want to make sure that we understand that the complaint that we received at the last board meeting, or at one of our past board meetings, wasn't due to this Influent pump station. That was due to another part. And that was due to our staff having to do something that we don't typically do and put sludge in an area that would help it dry out so that we can handle that. And because of the rains, it re-wet and reactivated that odor. I'm speaking to that because today, if we were to go ahead and do this odor control project, it's not going to address issues like that. Just we don't operate in that fashion is what's going to eliminate those odors. But as far as everyday raw sewage coming to the plant, this is what this project will help take care of as far as odor control. That's all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Vice President Martin, have any questions?
No.
Director Duncan? Director Grashaw?
I do. If you want to go to Director Sewell first, I could take a minute. If you give me the leeway, this could take a couple minutes because I wanted to circle around.
Go ahead. Go ahead. You go
Okay.
ahead. If you got good questions, go for it.
All right, good. On the, could you tell, is this a system that has a fragrance added to the air or a masking agent, or is it an actual filtration kind of thing?
This is a filtration. This is something that scrubs the air mechanically.
Oh, good. Okay, good.
This is what you're talking to typically is an industrial size stick 'em up. Is normally where they kind of hang them in certain manholes or areas like that, but that's not what this is going to be. This is actually big cost and electrical to bring in actual equipment that will scrub that air so that
Good. I don't want to take too much credit, but I had some involvement in the early days of that other system. That was one of the things that we did with her. Anyway, the other thing that I wanted to kind of bring into this is in the general manager's report, there's talk about some of the work that you have to do in the ponds to keep them moving, if you will. And you talked about one of the problems that we had created from doing that, I think, and that was adding, it sounds like our plant is running at certain capacity, it looks like, an overcapacity really. And so that brings me to, I'm concerned that it might not be wise to use an area that was originally meant when the land, I think when we started down this path as a district in the 70s, that for instance, the park land and the probably where the yard is, was meant for potential future growth for the perk ponds. At least that I'm adding the likelihood of that to the scenario, because I can't imagine that they plan to put the park in. I think it seems like they've added the park when they thought they wouldn't need it, and they said you can use.
No, that's not what happened. You would like to know the story?
Yeah.
What happened is that plant was a 5 million gallon a day proposed plant. So that would have more than been enough for, at that time, for what was going on in Hot Springs. That's so the park, they didn't need that was done in like before I got there. A year or two before I got there, they did the park thing with the city. But they had already decided that the 5.5 million gallons would be enough, and so they wouldn't need that property. So that's what for the park ponds or for anything. That was what they had predicted. Like so 86, 87, something like that.
So we're at 2 million now, and we literally are running out of space, I think, in terms of the ponds. They're having to, what, are you plowing it up to keep the microfibers from plugging the dirt? I can't quite figure out what you're doing to keep the water soaking into the ground. And that was what the part in the manager's report causes me concern about.
Can anybody answer that question?
I certainly can. I was just waiting.
Okay, Danny. why don't you
Okay, go ahead, go. I'm sorry.
I was just waiting for it to finish out. So there's a lot of moving parts, and hopefully I'm going to address the questions. So we are not above capacity. We are actually at capacity at times during peak flow, but we are not violating any permit. So I do want to get that out the record. I don't want to go off as not addressing that. So we are not in violation of any permit violation as far as capacity. So I want to just kind of good read on what I believe is asking is if we're adding this equipment, we're not necessarily increasing capacity. We're not necessarily taking a footprint away from an area that could potentially act as pond, increased pond location. This is, that's a bad read, I apologize. I'm gonna still finish out my statement. Where this is going in an actual area that's paved out today, and it's going to go into the wet well. So it's not going to take up any a critical location or land that we have existing today. As Madam President referred to, there has been the idea that is ultimately a 5 MGD plant, but what we're permitted for is less than that. So as far as the 30 acres that the plant sits on, we are not in jeopardy. So if you recall, and I know this is somewhat getting off of the actual subject, but it's related to the plant itself. If you recall that we brought something at mid-year, which is going to be a effluent cloth filtration so that we can improve the effluent quality. Right now we are seeing a number of reasons why our plant is having some issues processed from having recently done some rehab work on some of the paddles and the biology being down as to the inflow or the increase of flow because of COVID. Everybody's sitting at home right now. Every day is a weekend essentially. So we're going to probably see a little bit of relief, hopefully after things, I don't know what that means anymore, but when things go back to normal and people start to go to work and go to schools and leave our community, hopefully our flows come down. But there is chopper pumps, because what we're seeing right now with our Influent pumps being clogged up, we put a chopper pump capital improvement for in front of the board for mid-year. So those improvements are going to improve our effluent quality because they're not going to clog up our process, so to speak, cause our plant to bulk out and send solids out to that plant. And then the filtration, cloth filtration is going to also make that product, that effluent, that much better. And that will improve what we're dealing with right now and is making the concern for our ponds that much more of maybe highlighted issue. But what we do is we're maintaining those ponds like we always have mechanically with equipment and getting in there with tractors, and we let those percolate down, and we actually do scrape off the any type of sediment that's happening, because if we were to incorporate that, all we're doing is just migrating all those together and causing our own percolation problems. So not to hide anything, we are working on challenges, but footprint wise, losing valuable land for this type of improvement, none of those are concerns right now for this organization.
Right. I was trying to weave this into the overall discussion of using the land, or adding potentially adding a new facility that could potentially end up being surrounded by sewer treatment plant ponds. And that I lost my appetite for the idea for that when I started reading this a few days after our last meeting. I thought, wait a minute, we're at over 2 million a day on some of this stuff, and you start talking about some pretty dramatic efforts having to be made to keep the system working where we're at today. And I thought maybe it's not a great idea to use the last piece of land and that would be the maintenance facility.
Okay, and that's not a dramatic thing we're doing, by the way. It's
Well,
just
it is when you have to start moving water to keep the ground ability to evaporate or to percolate. It's
just the
pretty
cost
dramatic.
of doing business.
You should, in the best of circumstances, you wouldn't have to do that. So it gets dramatic when you start dragging pumps around because your ground is no longer accepting the effluent. So I think anyway, and so that was my concern there. I'm not sure I want to put a.
Okay, are you done? We have another question.
No, go ahead.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
Ivan, Director Sewell,
No further questions. Thank you.
thanks. Arden, anything else on this one?
Oh, yeah, well, I am gonna add that, these ponds are effluent ponds, and our plant is restricted to a 30 parts per million total suspended solids. So part of the effort of the treatment system is to remove those particles, and we do scarify, pretty typical of any recharge pond. And we do that to get, like Danny said, to open the pores up so that we can get percolation, and we do that routinely and have been doing it. It's sort of the standard operating procedure for ponds like that. So nothing more than that. Thank you. And all good input, all good comments.
Thank you. We'll move on then to item number 6, contract with Michael Baker International for the preparation of water and wastewater system master plan updates and capital budget augmentation. A lot going on this month.
While Danny's preparing and getting ready for this, I'll just mention that this is probably the most important operational planning document that any district like ours embarks on. And this document is very highly technical. It requires modeling both on the water and sewer line, and we may not have to do as much after we've already had one plan in place, which we do. One issue was that in the previous water master plan, not the sewer, we did one in the sewer. We did not do a capital improvements program and integrate that in there, which is essential. That tells us what we can expect that we will have to spend to replace the existing equipment. This document is going to be a little more expensive than the last one because we are more comprehensive. And that's one big item that we will be evaluating. Danny can provide you with some details. This document is extremely essential for us to look at what we need from an operational standpoint. It helps us prepare a financial master plan that it gives us a roadmap and on how we can move forward. So with that, Danny, you want to take it from there?
Certainly, Aaron. Thank you. I appreciate the introduction. Let me see what I can add to provide additional information. I am happy to say that finally, I know this has been a long time coming. It's been an item for me that I've been the plans that Arden remained reference to is 2005 and 2007 respectively, the water and sewer. So it's 16 plus years since we've updated these. And when they were updated before, they were updated through a grant process that unfortunately we don't have available to do the same today. But when we put the project budget together, we put the project budget together based on what we had at that time. And it wasn't until we realized, what do we really want? And that's what Arden was alluding to. It didn't have a capital improvement, 5-year capital improvement plan on the water side. So those are a lot of the things that we put in there. Where we were then, 2005, and where we are today. I'm not saying miles and miles and miles of infrastructure, but we've got new infrastructure in. We've got different things that we want to look at as far as future growth. We've got different land areas that were once looked at to be set aside for growth have now been taken over by multi-species habitat. So there's a lot to actually be to look at and be addressed, to also take our model and update that. So with that, those are some of the reasons why the cost, and let me actually provide some background. This project is a water and sewer master plan. By typical accounting practice that has been given to us by Matt and his team, is we like to go ahead and keep the costs with the respective funds. So the 201 fund water, the 301 fund sewer. So we created 2 capital job numbers. On the sewer side, since that project pretty much already had all the components that Arden was speaking to, we were actually under budget. Where we are with the water, it didn't have all the components, so we put that in the scope. So we broadened the scope from the original budget request to today. And those are some of the reasons why the cost is, why we're asking to be augmented to $345,000. What that really means is we're asking the board to look at it and increase it potentially as high as $200,000. Why? I think the bigger takeaway is We have worked through an evaluation and a negotiation process with the consultant, and we have found ways to minimize costs. And some of those costs can be minimized further if we can strategize on that. And that's why this is a negotiate and execute. But we're going to execute this contract at the $499,027 amount, and staff is going to be working on this to reduce costs. Much like all the other products that we have on hand, we are having to provide other program management, project management, or other ancillary costs. Given the time frame of this project, roughly a year, we're asking for third-party project management. We also have what amounts to about 730 hours between operations and engineering staff, and also administrative staff too, at certain times of the project we'll be working on this. So there's a big cost that has also gone up on this project. So those are the reasons why this project is also being asked as a capital improvement augmentation. There's a lot of newer things that have saved some costs that TKE and staff have negotiated to save costs, is utilizing the investment that the district has made in GIS, so that we could utilize that to streamline some of that information. But at the same time, since we're using the data that comes from that and some of the SCADA information that we've actually been implementing, that's going to help us save costs. At the same time, we're going to be updating that information and the models and tie that all with our GIS, and all those are going to work together seamless. So a lot of great things that are going to come out of this. It's going to be busy. We realize we've got this at the same time of other big milestone projects like the regional plant. And like I said, we're staffing up, and some of the costs involved here are to bring in third-party consultants to help us accomplish this task over the next year. So that's all I have today. Hopefully I didn't miss some of the highlights that I was trying to fill in for Arden. But ultimately, the work that the staff has worked on as far as negotiating with the consultant, and you'll see that in the attachments that are part of today's staff report, is roughly $90,000 in reduction that the staff has negotiated. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Okay, thank you. Director Grasha, do you have any questions? You're muted.
Sorry. No questions. Thank you.
Director Duncan? Vice President Martin?
No questions.
Director Sewell?
Yeah, it definitely seems like something we need to do as soon as possible. Do we have any record of when the master plan was last adjusted prior to this 2005 and 2007? Like, what's the common time frame for other agencies to review their master plans?
They don't even have them. A lot of people don't even have them.
True, Madam President, but it's more common that they do. And as a planning document, and like any planning document, the normal time frame for a master plan is about 5 years. If you may recall, we've struggled through some bad economies, and those are some of the reasons why we pushed it off.
And I was just saying that they don't have them, not that we don't need them. I mean, definitely they are very important, I think. I just think a lot of other agencies just don't do it. They have long range planning, but they don't do a full blown plan like this.
And I'll add to that, where you find that commonly are built out agencies. There is maybe a long-term planning, because that's going to be how we're going to maintain our current infrastructure, but we have no more land to build on. So we have no more expansion to respond to. Yeah. So those are some of the reasons, not all the reasons, but those are, again, in support of what you're saying, Madam President. Those are very true what you're saying.
Yeah, Nancy's right. Let's put it this way: a well-run district does have a master plan.
That's what I meant to say, Arden.
Yeah. No, and if you remember, Nancy, Director Wright, excuse me, President Wright.
President.
The two previous plans were paid for by grants, but this time There is.
Well, hey, you never know. This COVID thing and all these new monies that's gonna be flowing around out there. Just keep your eye open for grants for this kind of stuff. There
I
could
know.
very well be.
I know. I got JP
This
looking
is-
at that 600-page document.
That safer program that the state's put on for a safe and affordable drinking water program or whatever it is, there's money in there. Well, hey,
We will
Okay.
find it if it's there.
okay, anything else on this particular topic?
No.
Okay, if not, we'll go into item 7, regional
Thank you.
water reclamation facility update.
And I have, I'm always excited when I get to introduce Mr. Steve Ledbetter. Danny, did you want to say anything first?
Uh,
That's
No,
enough, Danny.
That's enough.
With that, Steve, you
Oh,
have.
sorry, Danny. Go for it.
Okay, can everyone hear me? Okay. Good afternoon, Madam President and directors. Thank you for having me today. I'm here again to give you your monthly update on the regional reclamation facility and the overall regional reclamation program. We've made some big steps in the last couple months that I'm happy to report on today. First off, I think I actually captured this in the February board meeting, our board study session, but we did receive the final plans and specifications from the design consultant. We received that in early February. And since then, we've been working on putting together the bidding package to go out, put the project out to public bid. We're looking to put the project out to bid at the end of this month or early April. And after I kind of walk through some of the updates, I'd like to show you a schedule that Dory will bring up to kind of walk through what some of the components are and how they relate to each other. But first, I'll finish our kind of verbal update. The regional board gave us comments back on our monitoring wells work plan, and that's the work plan that identifies where the 3 monitoring wells will go into the ground that will be used to monitor impacts from the proposed treatment plant on the groundwater quality. They had a couple very minor comments, so we have the consultant cleaning that up now, finalizing it, and that will go back to the regional board. And at the same time, we'll move forward with preparing the plans and specifications for these 3 monitoring wells, and those will be put out to bid. So I don't have a timeline on that off the top of my head, but that will be probably a couple months. We'll be back here with contractors asking for award of the contract to drill those 3 monitoring wells. If you recall, part of our WDR requirements is that we have a full year of monitoring of groundwater quality and levels prior to the treatment plant going operational. So that's why we're kind of pushing this ahead of the treatment plant itself, so we make sure we meet those requirements of the waste discharge permit with the regional board. We're continuing to work with the state hand in hand on the SRF and grant funding process. We've had a lot of discussions at the state water board staff level, and right now, we're expecting a draft funding agreement sometime in the next month. It looks like everything's lining up for April. And then there will be a little bit of a slowdown. So at the state level, the state finance department closes down for the last quarter of their fiscal year to close out their books internally. So that's going to delay our final funding agreement, or when actually the contract or agreement is signed between Mission Springs and the state. But they've assured us that we'll be working on that come July 1st. But basically next month, I should be able to update you on what exactly the district will be receiving in regards to grant funding and SRF. We've been tentatively told by staff that we will get up to the $16 million out of the small community wastewater and the groundwater grant programs. And then the remainder of the program cost will come from a loan estimated at 0.9% APR. So again, that's what we've been told at staff level, but that's got to make its way up and formalize through the agreement process, which again, I'll hope to report on next month with those details. And then on the conveyance line, so this was the main trunk sewer that's going to serve the treatment plant. As you know, we've kind of had the design on that on hold for several months. while we've been working on an easement with the Conservation Commission. I'm happy to report that we've made some progress with the Conservation Commission over the last couple months. We've been able to confirm that the area where we're requesting the easement is an already disturbed area. There are no sensitive habitats. There are no either sensitive habitats or vegetation that would come into play. So in essence, all we're going to be doing now is moving its way through the other conservation agencies and wildlife agencies at the state and federal level for their concurrence, and then we can complete that easement. With that said, we're no longer going to be on hold with the design of the conveyance line. We're going to be re-engaging on that project and keep that moving forward now that we're in a much better spot with the Conservation Commission on this easement area being realized. Any questions so far?
Director Grasha, any questions?
I'm concerned that since I got here, I've been told that this is all happening because we don't have the capacity at the Horton plant to do the work that needs to be done. And now I've just been informed that we have a 5 million gallon a day capacity plant, and that
No.
that there was never any link
not.
between the park and the need for more perk ponds, because we have plenty of room, but yet we all of a sudden don't have enough room. I can't figure. I'm trying to make sense of the information that's being seems to be fluid, if you will.
So that was 1986 or 87 when
I
they.
understand, and now we have this new issue of microfibers we didn't have then. But to say that that's not what happened, that parkland was always meant to be sewer treatment plant perk ponds. And I agree that we can't afford to take the park away, but to tell me in the middle of this meeting that that's not what happened is disturbing to me. And it just more of the
That's not what
same from.
Wait, go ahead. That was predictions. That was out in the middle of nowhere at the time too.
Okay, Dory, can you please bring up the schedule that I had sent over for discussion today? So I'd like to walk you through, we put together this schedule to just try to see how the bidding process times up with the grant funding. And then, so the bidding process is shown in blue. We'll walk through that. The SRF funding process is shown in yellow, and then beginning construction is kind of shown in orange. So I'll start at the top in blue, and in February, we received our final design package from the consultant. And since then and through the end of March, we'll be working on the bidding package. Once we're ready, that will go out to bid, and that will be over the months of April and May. We're estimating about a 6 to 8 week bidding period to get this project out to the consultants, have time to qualify contractors, and then get those bids back. And then at which time in June, we will begin our review process and qualification of contractors who bid on the project. The district typically has a 90-day award window following the bid opening. So that's going to give us 3 months, June, July, and August, to qualify the bids and bring them to the board for approval and award to move forward with construction of the project. Kind of over that same period, we have construction contract support services. So there's several ancillary services that we need to get this project complete. That includes project management, SRF and grant administration. We'll need technical support from the design engineer, answering RFIs and responding to and approving submittals. We'll have a CM and a construction manager, and we'll also have an inspection team. We're going to have kind of a lead public works inspector. We'll need a specialty inspector for materials testing. We'll need a deputy inspector that can handle any kind of building code items that come up, because we will have an inhabitable building on the site. And then we'll also need a specialty inspector for integration. And that's integration of the treatment plant into the district's existing SCADA system with radio communications. And last but not least, we'll need labor compliance support services. So over the next three or 4 months, we'll be working through that process with staff, getting those proposals, those RFPs prepared, sent out to consultants, whether it be on-call shortlist or open call. and bringing those back to the board for approval kind of on this same timeline. Now that's the bidding process in itself, and then I'll jump over now to the SRF process. I kind of alluded to this a minute ago, but we've been working since, we submitted our application in June of 2019, if you recall. So we've been working for, it's going to be about 2 years total to get this SRF package, but we're nearing completion on the draft SRF agreement. We're expecting that in April. I spoke with the state board yesterday and again this morning, and they've already began their financial and legal consultations with the district. So I haven't verified that with the Director of Finance, Mr. McHugh, and with Mr. Pinckney on the legal team, if that has happened, but the state has told me their staff is now working and beginning the consultation process. So if they haven't already reached out, they will be in the effort to get to this draft funding agreement step. What that draft funding agreement will tell us is what our construction eligibility date is. And that's the date that the district is eligible for reimbursement for any and all construction costs. So we will be eligible for any dollar spent towards the construction of this project beginning in May. At least that's at the staff level. That'll all be formalized in this draft funding agreement we'll be getting next month, and I'll be able to kind of confirm these details at that point. And then, as I mentioned, the state finance department, they go dark the last quarter of their fiscal year. So we won't see any action in moving this draft funding agreement forward over May and June. They won't be able to pick it back up until July. So that is a setback, but it shouldn't affect our overall timeline. And that's kind of why we laid this out. We've been told that we should expect that within a month to 2 months of when they come back, January 1. So we're kind of highlighting here that we'll have that final funding agreement in the July and August timeline. So as you can see, that kind of coincides with the bid award, but it might not line up perfectly. But again, we'll have the comfort of knowing exactly what's going to be in the final funding agreement and that we're eligible for reimbursement when it comes time to make award. So right now, our earliest construction start date would be September. And that would, kind of shift, forward or back, what have you, depending on when we make the decision to award the project. And also when that funding comes into play from the state. Any questions on that?
Yeah, Steve, you said it'd take 2 years to get through the process of the loan, the SRF. Is that what you said?
Yeah, we submitted our application back in June of 19.
Oh, okay, 19, 20, 21. So, okay, so it'll coincide with this work, in other words.
Yeah. So we're culminating at 2 years of efforts almost. It'll be almost exactly 2 years when we get the final funding agreement from when we submitted our original application.
Okay, so it'll all tie in together.
Yeah.
Now, is it kind of a loan that they pay as we go, or do we have to pay first and then they reimburse us? How is this going to?
We pay first and they reimburse us.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Anybody else? I can see you just kind of raise your hand if anybody else has a question at this point in time.
Steve does.
Okay, there he is. There we go.
Thank you. My guess is you're not going to want to answer or know the answer to this question, but do you have any contact with the potential bidders that might be interested in? I'm wondering if they are going to, is this something that's they're going to be able to fit into their schedules if there's a pool of people out there ready to go to work, or you said the earliest date it could begin is September. Do we know if that's realistic, or could it be something that might have to be scheduled in for September a year later, I guess?
The qualifications for this project, so as I've mentioned before, we're going to have a qualifications questionnaire threshold criteria that a contractor has to meet to bid on a project of this scope. And one of those criteria is that they've completed, I believe it's still in draft form, but let's just say they've completed 3 treatment plants of similar size and nature over the last 5 years. So we know we're going to have a qualified, competent contractor before we even look at their bid, just to make sure they meet these threshold criteria. They have to have a bonding capacity of $100 million. So to answer your question, yes, a contractor of that size, they'll be able to start bringing people over to this job to move forward. I would say we're looking at a $30 million cost. That's the last engineer's estimate we have on hand. And I would say that's a very healthy project that we're going to get some competitive bids on contractors that want to move forward with this project.
That's great news. So there is a pool of potential bidders out there that do meet those qualifications.
Yeah, we're not speaking with them directly, but my discussions are the team's discussions, I should say, with the design consultant. You know, they're a lot more familiar with the contractors and whatnot that are going to be bidding on this scope of project. They've told us that they're confident we're going to get some competitive bids.
Great news. Thank you.
Any of you else? Okay, go ahead, Steve.
That's all I have today. Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, directors.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good news and good report. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, Danny, anything else besides thanks, Steve, that you'd like to say?
No, I just wanted to say thank you. And I was going to answer the question a little bit differently for Director Grasha, but we resulted in the final conclusion, so we're good.
Okay. I mean, there might be more on Monday they want to hear too. So,
Certainly.
okay, thank you guys. Number 8, administration and courtyard building update. Pardon?
Can we do that on Monday? Because I would like to meet in closed session before we have Brian's presentation with that. Okay.
Madam President, before we move on, I did have that member of the public log into the meeting for public input. Would you like to do that now?
Yes, it's a good time right now to do it.
Okay. Mr. Betancourt, are you ready to go?
I am, and I thank you, Madam Chair. Dory bailed me out. We had been available on time on 2 different networks, but could not get in, and I appreciate your time. I dropped a note to you. I'm Philip Betancourt, and I'm a co-partner with Mrs. Margaret Van Dorp of the Van Dorp Betancourt family properties, which are Highway 62 at Worsley Road. I addressed you just about a year ago on our continuing effort to get water improvement plans for the property. We benefited property owners have, through AdCan engineers, provided as much as $15,000 now in plan check fees. We retained a noted water facilities policy consultant to help us better understand the district's requirements and culture. We paid for a water test to the nearest district hydrant at Smoke Tree to the north of our properties. AdCan representatives again confirmed the fire flow requirements for your staff. We have provided our set of Riverside County approved landscape plans to show our service laterals, and our skittish purchasers for the travel center site are now on hold because we are unable to confirm the status of plan approval. I'm a pretty accessible guy. I'm in government myself. I have 5 unreturned telephone calls and email messages to the staff this week to try and help us find what we need to do to get these plans approved and underway. These matters do not need to be addressed in this session. Danny and I have talked about this before. I've talked to the board about it before, but as time permits, we're trying to build a facility with United Pentecostal Church. It's an important part of district infrastructure. And I thank you so much, directors and staff, for all that you do. And thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. You know, we can't talk about it, but thank you. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you so much.
Forward to working with you.
Do we have a way to contact the gentleman?
Yes, the staff has been working with him.
I would like to hear more from the gentleman as to what
you know what, Steve, this is public comment. We are not talking about this. It's not on the agenda. So now we will go. I didn't ask you for any questions on this one. So we will now go on consent agenda, item number 9, 10, and that's it. Number 9 and 10, we will take up on Monday. Director's reports. Did I miss something? No, I don't think I did. Okay, director's reports. Anybody want to do their report today?
Yeah, I'll do mine today.
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
Okay, February 2nd, City Council meeting. There were two proposed ordinances dealing with the cannabis tax structure based on Cannabis Task Force recommendations. There was also a presentation by Tom Kirk regarding the CVAG's plans to address flooding and sandstorm mitigation along Gene Autry and Indian Canyon from I-10 south. As you know, that there are times when during a stormy season that you can't get to the Desert Regional Hospital if you need to. So that needs to be addressed, and I'm glad to see they're finally moving forward on that. On February 4th, Desert Valley Builders morning legislative meeting. They emphasized the building permits across the valley are very high with the last, especially in the last 6 months. Cathedral Cities has the highest number of permits pulled since 2006. There was also an update on the tribal fueling station on Bob Hope across from the casino. They're opening up a whole new complex there for people to get gas and diesel and the like. On February 9th, Riverside County Board of Supervisors meeting. The chair for 2021 is Karen Spiegel from the 2nd District, with our own Jeff Hewitt as vice chair. They gave as a normal county supervisors meeting. They had an extensive COVID-19 update with a lot of public comments. There's also an affordable housing resolution was passed. Cannabis retail agreement was approved, including a conditional use permit for Bermuda Dunes. February 22nd, Cabot's Museum Foundation meeting. The museum is now open for tours. If anybody would like to take a tour of the museum, it's now open. There was also an independent financial review presentation. February 24th, Agua Caliente Water Authority Board meeting, approval of groundwater production permits and groundwater production workshop took place. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Who else had some? I think, Randy, did you?
Sure.
Yeah.
February, yes, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
February 2nd DWA board meeting. I hadn't heard about it earlier or don't remember it. They were talking about the CV Water Counts Academy, and I didn't know we were involved. And then our meeting right after that, Victoria said we had several people going and that we were involved and we're part of it and all that kind of good stuff. So that was good. See Victoria's on top of that. Following CVWD board meeting was real quick. Nothing interesting. I can't read my own notes on a DWA board meeting, but they've been having real short meetings with one exception. And I've said this 20 times. State water contractors meeting, their attorney attends that forum when he gives us their report, gives them their report. It just absolutely convinces me if we ever do get to where we're looking to be a state water contractor, we have to hire somebody that knows what they're doing. I know I've said that too many times. February 24th was the first of the Aqua DC meetings in February every year for the past, 10 years. Arden, Nancy, and I have been back to DC looking for money for our sewers, for all sorts of abatement programs, Army Corps of Engineers, elected officials, etc. This year, obviously, we can't go, so it's done online. But this first day was our representatives giving their presentation. And here's my first thought for that day. The first speaker got up, absolutely trashed President Trump and said how wonderful Biden was. The second speaker got up and trashed Biden and said how wonderful Trump was. And both sides got so much done and the other side got nothing done. And I came to the conclusion, all right, nothing in DC has changed. Nothing at the level has changed. It's attitude as usual. And then as the day went on, some of the speakers got into actual meat and potatoes bills that are working on water-related issues that they're doing. So there was some encouragement, but initially, yeah, it was kind of disgusting to hear the attitude was same as usual. And that's all I have for the Aqua Conference. The next 3 Wednesdays, we're going to have the usual breakout sessions. So there should be some actual meat and potatoes presentation for
They're
the next.
staffers. They're staffers.
Yeah, staffers, and then, you know, what used to be called breakout sessions.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
laws and stuff like that. I don't know if
You don't have to listen to politicians.
Yeah, I don't know if either of the other two got the same opinion I did about the speakers, but it was kind of disturbing to begin with. And that's all I have.
Well, we're all California legislatures, so, you know.
Right.
Anyway, okay, I didn't go over my notes yet. I was going to do that on Monday for that DC conference. So I'll look at them over the weekend and tell you what I thought. I wrote it down. Okay, then, and then that's it, I guess, for that note. Ivan, you didn't have anything this month, did you? Or I see that, Dory, thank you though for putting these on this month. If we had to wait till March, we would never have remembered what we've heard. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, okay, so now we will go on to correspondence. There's just some stuff in here, thank you notes and whatnot.
Yeah, just a couple of things, and a post.
And your general manager's reports in there.
Right.
Thank you for Mission Lakes Country Club. Okay, so then we will move on and go to general manager's report.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. I would like to highlight some of these items. This report is getting rather thick. But what I want to do is start out with something that I would like to make sure that it is on the record that, by the way, on the status of the meter replacement project, I am pleased to report that all of the replacement meters and registers that we contracted out to have installed have been installed. And in fact, that has essentially been complete for several months. The reason you haven't seen it in front of you is that we are waiting for the shape files, and they've asked to have a couple of weeks in order to finish those. So we expect to receive those files before the April board meeting. So we wanted to give you a heads up that you should plan to have an agenda item at the April meeting to accept the work on this project as complete. It is essentially complete and has been, like I said. But I wanted to make sure you were aware the replacement meters and the registers have been installed. Other items that I thought you might be interested in us highlighting here is that the annual Desert Hot Springs Rotary Big Heart Award, we have nominated Mark Vermeer. It'll be a pre-recorded event to the air on YouTube on Thursday, March 25th at 6 p.m. And Ivan, did you have anything you wanted to add with that?
Yeah, it was the Big Heart Awards was our last live event last year, and we were hoping it would be our first live event this year, but it just didn't pan out that way. So it will be a live premiere on YouTube. So there'll be a comment section that's live that you can kind of mix and mingle with other people that are watching, but it will be posted online, you know, for the future. If you don't catch it that original night, it'll be up for anyone to watch it.
Oh, yeah. So I'd already answered Victoria's email and said, send me the link. So whatever. So that, now what time is it that evening?
6
Six.
o'clock.
25th, pardon?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock on the 25th, right?
Yes.
Okay, I just didn't have the time. Okay, thanks.
Okay, the other things that I'd like to give you a heads up on is that the upcoming contracts that we will look at, the audit services, which is a 3-year contract between the board of directors and Rogers Anderson's, Malady and Scott, will be reviewed and on the agenda upcoming. We are going to do a request for qualifications for the architects and engineering services for the building, and you can talk about that later on. And then the request for proposals to be issued for the classification and compensation study will be coming up here also. The all hands meeting will be March 17th at the corporate yards, and we will be respecting social distancing at that meeting, and mask and sanitation. So, or sanitizing, let's put it that way, not sanitation. Budget season has started. The employee requests meeting took place this on the 3rd, a couple of days ago. Staff will be scheduling a workshop with the Human Relations Committee to review the request. And the last bit of good news that I have is we have essentially completed well 26, which we brought to you a couple of times. It's the tests are showing much more production than we had hoped for. We should have that up and running, have the line chlorinated, and we'll be online, I think, Monday. So we'll have another update for you in the next engineering or general manager's report. And that's it. That's all I wanted to highlight. But I am excited that we have finished the AMI project. And that's it, Nancy.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is financial report.
That would be Mr. Matt McHugh.
Good afternoon, Madam President, members of the board. I'd like to briefly go over the financial results for the 6 months ended December 31st, 2020. And if you don't mind, I'll share my screen. That way I can use my cursor to kind of point around rather than talk about columns and lines from the top. As we discussed last month's board meeting, we are wrapping up the calendar year in this report. Is very much as expected. It does show operating results way ahead of budgeted revenue. But again, as we discussed last month, the budget will show those adjustments in January, next month's report. So everything that we're seeing here in these large variances is expected because we budgeted so low for our revenue. This number will become a lot smaller next month. And also this number, which is the non-operating revenue, which is totally related to the timing of the grants that were expected from the SRF. Investment returns continue to be flat yet consistent. Debt service ratios are very high. This will assist us in getting through qualifications for the SRF program, and also additional debt issuances or commercial loans, however we decide to go for the large projects other than the regional plant that's being handled by through the SRF. Still maintaining a good cash position. So as I alluded to earlier, somewhat consistent results and very much as expected through December 31st, 2020. A couple of other things. There was a question asked earlier in the meeting about COVID costs to date. Those costs are mentioned in the general manager's report, but they are just a little bit over $1 million to date that are costs related to COVID activities and or purchases related to staff changes and or facility changes that were required to accommodate the pandemic. That does include quite a bit of staff time, so that is definitely not cash out purchases related to COVID. But those costs we have been tracking and have accumulated to that point to date. What I'd also like to share with you is some of the discussion about accounts receivable, delinquencies, not shutting customers off, so on and so forth. What you have in front of you is an accounts receivable aging. And so what this represents is if you took all of our customer accounts and added them together, you would get these dollar amounts at these points in time. These are the last 3 fiscal years, and then through last month for the current fiscal year. So what I'd like to show you is just kind of how things have been trending and what's been happening with these accounts and delinquencies during this time, and then talk a little bit about kind of where we go from here. So as you can see, in total accounts receivable in this column, accounts receivable continue to rise. This is not unexpected with rate increases and client count, customer count increases. These are expected increases in these dollar amounts. This is about a 34% increase over June of last year, which is a sizable increase without a doubt. About 9.5% of that would have been related to the water rate increase that happened on January 1st of 2020. So that's part of that increase, but this is a fairly sizable increase of about 20 to 25% that we're basically attributing to COVID and the lack of that leverage that we've had in the past of turning people off for non-pay. But what is of interest here, and what is what we are keeping an eye on, and what I wanted to share with you, is the aging of these receivables. These titles up here are days, and so the current column is 1 to 30 days from the date of the bill. So that is just current bills. That is fairly expected in this column here. Once a bill goes delinquent that hasn't been paid in 30 days, it switches over to this column, so on and so forth until we get out to 120 plus days of aged receivables. And what we've been seeing here and monitoring since February of last year is the aging of these receivables. You don't see a lot of change here in this column, and a slight increase in the 31 to 60 column, but what we do see is this large increase in the 120 plus days column. You can see here that this somewhat hovers around 300,000, and we're close to double that now. So again, we're still analyzing and monitoring this, but and this also includes delinquent fees. And now remember, when the governor of California gave his order that no utilities be shut off for non-pay, obviously we followed that order, but we did not discontinue the accumulation of late fees on an account. So a lot of this amount is late fees. We may end up writing these off. We are working with customers. Customer service staff is daily calling large balance customers and or long overdue customers and working with them to set up payment plans, keeping in the forefront of that conversation the customer assistance programs that are available to our customers. We currently have the Help to Others, which is everybody's aware of, that's administered through the United Way. We've recently started also seeing part of the CARE program, which is COVID-related relief funding. And we're also hearing of some new funds that are coming through the process that are, I believe the acronym is going to be called LIFT. And these are going to be routed through the county, and we will be directing customers to the county. It is our understanding at this time that the United Way will also be administering that program and those dollars. So there is aid available. There is more aid on the way, but just wanted to get you a picture of what our receivables look like and what they've done over the last year related to this pandemic. As I mentioned earlier, I also added out here delinquent charges. This is charges, delinquent charges to date for these time periods. And so you can see in the past 4 years, we've been below 400,000 in delinquent charges. This year, we're up to 646,000 only through February of 21. So those continue to accumulate. As I mentioned, we have been very understanding with customers, and as they set up payment plans and other arrangements to pay their past due accounts, we have been forgiving a lot of delinquent charges on those accounts. And so real quick, in a graphic way, these are the same numbers for the same time periods. Some people like to see the actual numbers, and sometimes it makes a little more sense to look at it in a graphical way. But the thing to note here is that these light blue bars are the oldest aging category. And so you can see kind of in here is the middle of the road. It kind of hovers, and then this year it jumps to that $600,000 figure that we saw on this page. That concludes my presentation, but I will obviously answer any questions that I can.
Okay, Director Grasha.
I'm going to reserve my questions for Monday. I'm going to have to go back and listen to this part of the meeting again and catch every little nuance. I found this all very interesting, but I don't want to go off too far here. But thank you.
Okay. Sounds good. Vice President Martin,
Nothing. I have nothing.
Director Duncan. No. Director Sewell.
Yeah, I had a quick question, Matt. That 120 plus 655 figure, do you know about how many accounts that is?
I do not have that data, but I can probably find that out by Monday. I do not have it in front of me.
Okay, I think that'd be interesting. And I don't know if we even have the data on it of whether those are owner occupied or renters.
Again, not in front of me, but I'll gather that data.
Okay, thank you.
Interesting. Okay, what I find interesting is in 2019, the 86,693 delinquent charges is very, very low compared to the rest. And from what I've heard, that was one of the best economic years that we've had in a long, long time. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but it sure looks good. Okay, thank you, Matt.
President, right?
Yes.
I just wanted to maybe address Randy's earlier question. I think, and Matt, you can correct me, but I think if you look in the engineer's report, the actual shortage cost due to COVID is $895,000, but that doesn't include some lost revenue and everything, but that's the cost to us for the staff time and everything that we put into the COVID response. Okay.
That's on top of, that's okay.
No, that's included.
That's total with what he said. Okay.
Yeah, that's integrated into.
Added to what he said, it's 800,000 and some odd.
Yeah, but I think I'm just trying to think of what Randy asked a little earlier and didn't want to say anything until Matt had his presentation, which was excellent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. District Council report.
Yes, we will have a closed session today, and it will be on conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D1. And that's one case. It's case number RIC 2003782, George Padilla and Sharon Marino versus Mission Springs Water District. And the second item is conference with real property negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8. The property is 7.51 acres at 14866 Palm Drive, Desert Hot Springs. Agency negotiator, General Manager Arden Wallum. And the negotiating parties are Mission Springs and Leo Wu Kyun and Take Young and Lee Chang Sun. Under negotiation are price and terms.
Thank you.
Question I have, the first case, did you cover the one regarding Desert Water Agency?
We're not going to have a closed session on that today.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now with district or director's comments, Director Grasha. You're still muted.
I'm sorry. I would be interested in having an agenda item added to the next next agenda on Monday, if it's possible. I think it is. It's a light agenda. We know what we're going to do on everything from Mr. Betancourt's situation. I'd like to hear more from him. I'd like to hear from staff what the problem is. Our number one responsibility is to supply projects like this with water. I can't imagine what's going wrong that we're not able to do that. Also, I think we had parade and fireworks celebrating that there was no case against us from Mr. Padilla. We had one board member at the city council meeting a few weeks ago talking about how this was all just a bungle of lies, that there was any case. And now I see it's back on the agenda. So I wonder if we're going to have to go and correct the record at the Desert Hot Springs City Council for bad information being shared with the public there on this subject. With that, I turn it back to you, Madam President.
Yeah, I have a comment just for clarification purposes, not to argue the issue. But the facts that I presented at council meeting were factual. I never said the case was dismissed. I said that the causes of action that were presented to the court were thrown out, and the court allowed the plaintiffs to amend their complaint and resubmit. But the initial comments that I made were factual. There was nothing. So if we're proceeding on that, that's fine. But that's not what I didn't say. That the case had been dismissed. Only the causes of action that led to the court action had been thrown out. So I just want for clarification purposes.
Okay, so the other director's comments. Do you have any more director's comments for today? That part of the meeting. Russ? No? Okay, Randy?
All right. Quickly, I mentioned earlier, today actually marks the 1-year anniversary of the official pandemic beginning. Our staff since then has done an awesome job, sometimes working from home, sometimes working from the building, you know, the social distancing, the mask, all the extra protective procedures they had to go through. I just want to commend our staff. I think they've done an awesome job with this pandemic thrown in their face overnight. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Director Sewell?
Yeah, I did ask the question of Matt regarding his presentation on the delinquent accounts, and I didn't say thank you for the presentation, and I hope we can keep those current month to month, just so we can kind of keep track of that 120-day plus amount. It seems that's going to be a pretty big hole for some of our ratepayers to dig themselves out of, so it'd be interesting to keep an eye on that. Thank you.
Yeah, and eventually maybe find out how many that we were able to help out by taking off all those charges. Arden said you've been talking to people and helping them on that note. So eventually that would be good information too. Okay, so I guess we're just going to go into closed session now.
Can we take a break?
You want to take a break?
Well, I mean, I'm just going to sneak in for a second and then I'll be back. Oh, we need to have Brian. It's going to be in with the with us with the building closed session, and And then Matt, I think if he wants to, is going to be in on the class action suit. So just for the record. All right.
Okay, so we now,
Who
Doris,
am I
got-
admitting first?
pardon?
Who am I admitting first? Matt or Brian?
Since we have Tom Slovak, let's do the class action first.
So that would be Matt.
Yeah.
Dory, can you let us get into the room and then take
I have
our,
another meeting Monday.
What?
sorry.
They're
Go ahead.
shutting it down right now.
What are you talking about?
Director Grasha, you're not muted. Thank you.
You are muted.
Did you have a request before we go in?
No, I'm sorry. I was trying to make a note here about Monday.
Okay, we're recording.
Okay, we're, Mr. Pinckney.
Yes, the board met in closed session on two matters: conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1. That involved one case number RIC 2003782, George Padilla and Sharon Marino versus Mission Springs Water District. There was no reportable action taken. The second item was conference with real property negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8, property 7.51 acres at 14866 Palm Drive in Desert Hot Springs. The agency negotiator, General Manager Arden Wallum, negotiating parties Mission Springs Water District and Lee Woo Kyun and Taik Young and Lee Chang Sun under negotiation price and terms. There was no reportable action taken in closed session. That concludes the report out from closed session.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So if nothing else, meeting adjourned.
See you all next week.
All right.